actually, for me, is Cal's brother, but this tonight and this book launch is a culmination of a lot of years of Cal's work. A lot of you in this room know Cal really well, love him. A lot of you are reading his work. Give some backstory for those of you who don't know Cal. He is tall. He comes in at 6'9". He is a college basketball player, and then he had an amazing sales career, ranging from selling power tools, educational software, high-tech food and vacuum. But he really is. During this time, ever since then, he's been able to get into writing, family, and now we're living together here. Wife Anita, daughter Anina. Cal packed up. So they moved over there. Had a great time there, but he's always wanted to get had the opportunity to go down to the last 2 years. Wife Anita. Thank you so much for being here. We're going to do a little Q&A with the author himself. I'll ask you to be the guy that asks the questions. If you know any Irish, you know we have this thing called the blotchy neck syndrome. It's like when notice my neck card really red right now. When we talk in front of people, we get a little blotchy neck, so hopefully they calm down a little bit. Did you have that on old front? Yeah, when she asked me about the second talk, yeah, I definitely got it. And she called me Ellie. But anyway, so hopefully we'll watch you a little bit. Don't focus on that. But I wanted to just, this is a big event for Cal. So I wrote him a special song that I'm going to play for you. And this is going to kind of be his walkout song. So without further ado, here's Cal. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, dad mode.
Yeah. This is an AI generated song about dad mode. So just listen to it. Look at that.
All right, let's dance, Eli. Dancing it up. Yeah.
I think you could get my Ellie actually. Okay, so Tal, welcome. Look at all these people who are here for you today.
Yeah.
Let's give Tal a round of applause. This is the first of a few events. We have this event tonight, another one in Park City on the 18th, another one in Berlin.
Frankfurt.
Sorry, we're going worldwide with this. We got Frankfurt, maybe Sydney. I don't know, Tokyo. We'll see where it goes. But this is a really exciting time to be here today. This is dad mode. I mean, look at that. Doesn't that look like Tal kind of?
I think it actually the guy did. So the illustrator on this is Bernardo França, and he's a guy from Sao Paulo. And the publisher hired him, and I think he did a great job on the illustration. So you can see him around here. Yeah.
So Tal and I we've always had a special relationship. He's number 6, I'm number 8 out of 9. We used to do this thing where we'd play basketball on the court and we'd say, you got to have the love. You got to have the love. So we'd go out and like play in the rain and the wind. He'd be like, got to have the love. And he got the height and went on to play in college. I am the runt of the family, and I barely made the varsity team in high school. But we have a lot of fun experiences together. This is a picture of me and Tal from when we were little kids. I don't know if you can see. This was back in the day where it was kind of hard for Tal to close his mouth because he had some big buckers. But shoot, hold on. Noah will be happy with that. There we go. Anyway, this is me and Tal. Back, I don't know how old we were, maybe 6 and 10 or something like that. But Tal, you can see a lot of joy and a lot of positive psychology in that face, and also like, what would it be like to be able to close my mouth? But anyway, we'll go back to that on that note. But Tal's amazing, and I'm so happy to be here with him today. So this is the chance we have today to kind of ask some Q&A about the book, kind of where it came from, what the hopes are with it. And so let's start out with just some getting to know you a little bit. I also want to point out Tal's got some sweet new shoes on today. He's got like the Euro vibe going on. Euro socks. Yeah. It's nice. Okay, so tell us about your family and what is it like to live in Switzerland?
Okay, so first of all, just thank you so much, everybody, for being here. It means so much. You know, you sit in a room or at a desk and write for actually years now, and it's just so fun to celebrate a launch of a book. And the people who came, it means a lot. I know you have a busy schedule, and I just really feel so much gratitude for you. So thanks a lot. And so Anita and Anina wish they could have been here. We put a picture of them up by the door because they're, a lot of you know Anita and Anina, and they're supportive every step of the way. And every time I had to write something, Anita was picking up the slack with the most important thing was parenting. So I really appreciate that.
How old's Anina?
Anina's 12 years old now. Yep. And she's she's growing quite a bit. She's the tallest in her class, and she's and living in Switzerland is amazing. We love just it's like Heidi Land, literally where we live. Everybody in Switzerland loves they love the Capricorns, the big mountain goats, I guess, with those big horns on them, and then they also love they love goats. They almost worship goats. There's little goats with little bells, and you can hear the bells everywhere in all the mountains. And those of you that've been to Switzerland, you know that. But we love it in Switzerland. It's amazing there. And yeah, so that's a little bit about that.
Great. So tell us about your fascination with off-roading and 4x4s.
Oh, okay.
Four-wheeling. You didn't see that coming.
Well, actually, that's the thing that I wanted to get into right away, because so if there's one thread through the entire book, it's that we have to blaze new trails. We have to think again about the way that we are coming as parents. And in this world, this fast-changing world of ours, it feels like every single way, there's 25 ways to connect. Every way, I was saying, we need to blaze a new trail. We need to rethink how we're doing this dad thing. And it applies to moms as well. But this rethinking is such an important topic. And I think that the more I learn about neuroscience, the more I learn about how when neurons fire together, they wire together, right? So what happens is we all grow up in our own situations. We all grow up in a family, and we have these neural connections that have happened in our family over and over again. And then we grow up and we maybe find a partner, and they have their own neural connections or their own pathways that they've had in their life. Some of them are healthy, some of them aren't. But what I love about this book is what I'm trying to do is help people to blaze new trails of new pathways together. And that's a really hard thing to do. And it's all about behavior change, and that's a big thing. That's a big topic. But if we all can think about what pathways we came into this sort of world with, and then how do we think about what's the most healthy way to use them and connect with our kids, and maybe change them, maybe blaze new trails with your partner. So that's kind of the big point of the book, actually.
Get some water back here. Another Irish thing, cottonmouth. When you talk a lot, you get cottonmouth. So I got water. So tell us, like, how long has this book been on your mind, and what was like the clincher to be like, I got to write this thing?
So you guys may know, but my parents have written over 60 books now, our parents. And we grew up in this atmosphere of parenting, and sort of one of the things that we learned, one of the things that I picked up, and it's this dirty little secret of authors, and that is that people write books to figure out their own stuff. You know, like literally, we would see a book teaching children responsibility, and then at the dinner table we'd be talking about responsibility, and like they had to do what they said they were, or what they were writing about in their book. So one of the coolest things, and one of the things I want to encourage all of you to do, is think about, what book are you writing? What is your story? How are you? Because that's literally some of the most powerful stuff that we had growing up. Is our parents had to talk or walk the talk. They literally had to do that. And I feel like that's been the biggest key for me, is to like walk the talk and basically write a book. So it was started out for just families, and now it's more turning to just to dads. I felt like I had my voice when I was talking just to dads. So that's sort of the way that came together.
What was like finally like what was there? Do you remember, like, is there anything in particular that? Because I know you've been talking about it for a while.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it.
I think it was at my master's degree. I had to write a capstone, and I wrote a book proposal for my capstone. It was called Flourishing Families, but it changed and morphed into Dad Mode.
Cool. So, what is that?
Dad Mode. So I still remember so clearly sitting around the dinner table with my whole family. I had a certain place that I sat in. I had to sort of squeeze around the chairs to get to it, and I remember seeing my dad up sort of on the side of the table trying to explain a new system in our family. And I looked around the room, and not one person was paying attention to him. So it was a big fat failure. I mean, he was trying to say, okay, we're gonna do this thing, and my mom was like, yeah, we're gonna do this thing, and I just could not believe nobody was paying attention, like zero attention. And I realized in that moment that, like, it's the effort that matters. It's the fact that they were trying to do something. And I love that about my parents, because they tried so many things and they failed so many times. And but it was the effort in the long run. Some of the stuff stuck, and we're a connected family because of it. And I think, just seeing my siblings here and seeing so many of you here, I think that that's the key that I want you guys to take away, is don't worry about it too much if you're totally failing, because it happens with all families.
That feels good to hear. I actually was sitting at dinner the other day with my family, talking, and like I don't even know if I'm listening to myself.
So let me just say, though, the definition, it was so fun because I got to write my own definition of dad mode. It's on page like 9 in the book, and it says down at the bottom, and it says dad mode is the art of consistent and focused effort towards a warm connection with your kids. That's basically what I think it is. It's consistent effort. It's not perfect. It's just effort. And you're going to get it right sometimes. You're going to get it wrong sometimes. But I think it's a good way to get into dad mode.
That. So you have the ideas, you start trying to formulate it. Then obviously you have to go put pen to paper or finger to keyboard or whatever. But then 25 ways to connect. What got you to that?
It was going to be 31 days and just have dad sort of check it out once a day. But then I was talking with my sister Saren, and she said, Tal, why don't you do Waze? That's so much more flexible. And I was like, that's a great idea, Sarah. So we changed it to Waze, and then we kind of just pared it down to my like greatest hits, the ones that I learned in positive psychology or that I wanted to really talk about. And that's why there's not a chapter, it's a way. So there's 25 ways in the book to connect with your kids. So that's
favorite way.
Yes, I do. Way number 2 is my favorite because I think it's the key to everything. It's self-connection. So if there's anything that I got asked this on the airplane on the way here. Someone said, what's the most important part of your book? And I said, definitely the self-connection, because we can't connect deeper with our kids if we don't have a connection with ourselves first. So that's one that I kind of geek out on. I love that one. So it's like putting the effort in to make our own connections, make a sense of our story in our life, figuring out why we have those pathways that we have. Why do we act that way? What is that? Where is that coming from? And maybe do we need to change that, or is it okay? And so that's, yeah.
So a follow-up question that sometimes I feel like as a parent or a human in general, like you're so caught up on other things or your kids or work or whatever it is, like what's your advice to all of us for making time for, or how do we self-connect?
I love that question. I'm so excited about this topic. So I don't know how many of you have heard of shadow work. You know what shadow work is? Yeah, I love this concept. It's something that comes from Carl Jung, and he did his practice right on Lake Zurich. So I went to his house. He's got a really interesting story, but he said that there's kind of a first half of life and a second half of life. And when you're a dad, you're kind of moving into the second half of life. And he says you should work on your shadow work. And the shadow work, the best way for me to explain it would be by way of an Aesop's fable. There's an Aesop's fable that says we have 2 sacks that we carry, one in the front and one in the back. The one in the front is full of everyone else's faults. The one in the back is full of our own faults. And so it is that you can always see the faults of others, but you don't really know the faults of yourself. And the shadow work is doing the work to figure out what those faults of yourself are. Like, how do you come into the world? What do you do that you don't even know that you do? And if we're working on that, we're really showing our kids that we're trying to make these connections. And then we have to figure out some way to actually find joy in it. When we find that, when we get humiliated, when we see that, like, ooh, I'm doing that, that's really not okay. And instead of pushing it away, actually saying, that's what I want. And the thing that we can learn the best from is our partners. And we have to, our partners, please go gentle on us, because it's easy for our partners to see some of these things, but we don't see them ourselves. So shadow work is like a lifelong thing that I recommend, because to be a better parent, it's really great to have those connections with ourselves.
Does it help if you're like really tall and you have a big shadow? So Barbie and the Zingers, what's up with that?
Ooh, thank you. So how many of you have seen Barbie, the movie? Oh, nice. Most of you. Okay. So I watched that the other day, and that one is a good one for dads to watch, because it'll give you some good shadow work right there. All right. And literally, it's actually fun to look through and see what we're not seeing as men, what we're not seeing as a general group as men, but also just as men. But I remember there's one part where Ken is walking through this high school or something, and he, he's talking about how, let's see, he's saying something about how women are respecting him, but but also this lady says something like the, the the kids always go to the mom for certain things, and he's so mad because he's like, oh, this is such a stereotypical male thing, but there are certain things that kids go to the mom on, and they maybe complain or they have a hard time, and they go to the dad for the fun or something like that. And that shouldn't be that way. I think that we should figure out how to have dads have that role as well. So it was a good shadow piece for me.
Okay, so you talked about the self connection part. That's kind of the internal thing, but then next step is like into parenting, right? So
Yeah.
so like what you as a dad, like what are some scripts that you've adopted, things that you've
Oh,
found
right,
that are
right,
helpful?
right. So one of the things is intellectual humility. Is I end up saying I love this concept of intellectual humility because it's basically saying I could be wrong about something. And I say that a lot at our dinner table. I say I could be wrong, but and I keep saying it, and I'm like, I like to be proved wrong. I don't want to be Mr. Know-it-all, and I used to be more of a Mr. Know-it-all, and my daughter now starts to say it, and that's a big compliment to me when she starts a phrase by saying I could be wrong, but. And in the world that we live in, it's so polarized these days. It's great when we admit that we're wrong more often, or we try and figure out if if there's a better way to do something. So another script, real quick, is in praise. So in my family growing up, praise was a really big topic. My mom and dad, they literally would go to groups like this and they'd say, shower your kids with praise. And I think that is a great thing, but I've actually decided that there's a new pathway for our family on that topic. And that is praise the process that the kids go through to get something done. But don't just praise, praise, praise. For example, I don't say you're so smart to my daughter because I don't want her to get a fixed mindset around that topic. I want her to be praised for look at all the work that you did. You must feel very proud of yourself for what you've done to get that grade. But I try to sort of nuance that a little bit, and that's a new trail that I've taken.
Like that.
Praise the process.
Praise the process. Praise the process. Okay, so what was your biggest surprise as you were trying to write this book and bring it all together?
I think the biggest surprise was that dads actually can do a lot more just responding to their kids or receiving their kids. It doesn't have to be so proactive. It can actually be um, observing your kids more. And I thought that being a dad was all about, okay, let's move like this guy right here. But on this drawing, it actually has two other drawings. One is just standing there and watching. And the other one is kind of overwhelmed. Because being a dad, sometimes you have no clue what you're doing. You do not know. You're totally confused. So I'd say 10% of the time I feel that way. But 40% of the time, it's more watching my daughter and trying to see what strengths she has and mirror those back to her. And that's it. Not like telling her what to do or anything, but just that. So
Who's gonna win the NBA Finals?
we're at a dad event. We got to talk about basketball. I got to tell you guys, I'm loving the Timberwolves. I love Anthony Edwards. If you guys want to talk about him, I think he's impressive the way that he's doing things right now, and I think he's going to be the next superstar. Mark my words. Anthony Edwards, Ant, is going to be the next superstar. So it's on recorded now.
Favorite food to eat in Switzerland?
Rosti.
Rosti.
Rosti is it's
Rosti.
basically you probably know what it is, but it's basically hash brown, basically a nice hash brown, cooked nice and brown on both sides, and they put an egg on the top of it. It's really good.
Only costs about $40. 40 francs. I mean, sorry, that's $60. So, okay, so moving on. I don't know if any of you guys noticed, as you can tell us, had some around the house. There's some stuff on the walls about some clips from the book, some pictures, things like that. The family vision statement.
Oh yeah.
And the North Star. Tell us a little bit about that.
So I encourage dads at the end to think about the values that you have as a family, and then come together with a short vision statement for what your family is, what you do. And growing up, our family vision statement was, Sadie, you remember?
Broaden and contribute.
Broaden and contribute. And we would apply that to everything that we did. Broaden and contribute. And so I wanted to do one with Anita, and we came together with two phrases. One is love first, and the other is create good stories. And I love that because for our family, just a few weeks ago, we reflected on those two things. So love first is a cool combination of love, because we went to India right after we got married, and we basically we went to this Rising Star Outreach School, which there's a lot of connections with Rising Star here. And the director of the program, her name is Joyce Hanson. And the first day we got there, she just showed so much love to us. We'd just been out in the cacophony of India, and it's just the streets, the honking. And then we just got into this oasis, and she was so loving to us. And for some reason, that stuck with Anita. She said, I want to have that in our lives. I want to love first. First thing we do, no matter what, just show love to people like we got treated that day. And we just kept saying it, and then we just said, we need to put that into our vision statement. And then the create good stories comes from me, because I love stories. I think that stories are so powerful. Every day is a story. This event is a story. We all have these stories, and I think that we can create good stories no matter what happens. The crowd surfing outside. And so I think, we remind Anina, hey, we're going to create a good story out of this. Even though it's not going very well right now, we're going to have a good story.
This is something that I've learned from you. A lot of who I am as a person is I learned from Tal. Even though he's in Switzerland, we go back and forth on Marco Polo all the time. We're on WhatsApp all the time. We talk a lot. And I feel like anytime I just need to learn something, I just need to call him and we can talk. But I thought about this a lot when you talk about it. But the typical tendency in like our culture to be like, we're awesome, everything's perfect all the time. Why wouldn't it be like, create amazing stories, create awesome stories, create perfect stories?
Yeah.
Why just create good stories?
I think that life is so difficult. I was just thinking about the lyrics of this Hallelujah song from Jeff Buckley. And a lot of times, I love this line. It says, love is not a victory march. It's a cold and it's a broken hallelujah. And I think that just defines it for me. I mean, I just talked to a bunch of you guys before. Everybody's got difficult things in your lives. This is not this like just life is great thing. We all have challenges that none of us even know that much about, probably. But thanks for asking that, because it's good is good enough. Good is great. For me, good is great. I like good. I don't like great. Sometimes we actually had a phrase in our family, good is the enemy of best. And I actually don't agree with that either. We need to create a new little pathway with that one as well, because I'm good with good.
That sucks. So here's a question for you. There might be some of us in this room myself included, where there are times where like you're trying to make meaningful connections with your kids or with your spouse or maybe with friends or whatever wherever you are in your life, but like maybe you have some really bad connections and you're either scared to go back to them or you don't know how to fix them. Like, what do you say to someone? What does Dad Mode think about that?
That's a good question. In this world where we're having uh, so many people thinking again and so many things happening, there's a lot of disconnect in families, right? And um, I don't know if I have the answer to everything in that, but one of the things that I cover in the book is how to reconnect after a rupture. And I think that the biggest thing that comes to mind is one, um, basically we've got to do a new twist on it. You can't just have a normal apology. Sometimes you have to do something a little bit on top of that. And so I talk about how Uber figured something out when they made a mistake, when a ride didn't go well or something. They did like this huge survey and they figured out that people loved it when you did something costly to apologize on top
Playing
of
from Eli's iPhone.
on top of a normal thing. And so I say in the book, like, try doing a twist on your apology where, for example, if your daughter keeps asking you, please don't put food on my plate until I ask you for it, and I keep putting food on her plate, and she's so mad by the end, and I say, that's it. This time, if I put food on your plate and you don't want me to, we will go to the store together and we'll get your favorite gummies. And she was so excited about this. And so was I. And I only lasted like 3 days. I put like a hot piece of toast on her plate and she's like, yes, I got it. I got it. So she got her gummies, but it got me thinking in a new way because I was like, why is that so important? I just made this food. I want her to have the food. And I realized that it was important to her and it changed the way that I actually connected with her. Just that little thing. So.
I don't want to forget this moment, so I'm going to take a Marco Polo right now. I'm interviewing Tal. This is Dad Mode.
Hello.
Look at all these awesome people out here. Yeah. We'll show this on the Today Show next week. Anyway, thanks for indulging me. So that was pretty wussy. Let's get a little more. Yeah. It wasn't filming, dang it. Oh well. Good enough. Okay, so Tal, there's a lot of people out there talking about parenting.
Yeah.
Who did you draw inspiration from writing this book?
Well, you guys know Dr. Becky is Dr. Becky Kennedy. I would recommend following her. She's exceptional. There's so many good parenting people online that can totally help with things, but I really like hers. I like another thing called Happy Human Life. They're super good at what they do. But I feel like there's so many different people and platforms out there, but there's not that many just for dads. I think that's a good niche to be in. And yeah, so in the book, I just wanted to mention as well, at the end of each chapter is 5 action steps for those things. So you can kind of look at those and see how you can kind of apply them in your own ways.
Okay, so we're going to go into a bit of a lightning round now, and then we're going to open it up to a little bit of Q&A. But, okay, another one of these things I've learned about from you recently is the power of bad. So really quickly, tell us about that.
Okay, so it's been proven, it's kind of hard to admit, but the power of bad is much stronger than the power of good when it comes to interactions with people. So if you have a really bad interaction with somebody, it takes 5 good interactions to overcome that. And so this 5-to-1 ratio is by the Gottman, the Gottman Institute, which is amazing. And they basically say that, so I think it's great in parenting as well. Just keep that in mind, 5-to-1. And it's kind of hard, but it's a good thing to keep in mind.
Okay, got some work to do there. Okay.
I know, me too.
Do you address screen time at all on dad mode? That's a hot topic.
Yes, one of the ways is screen savvy families. I would just say real quick, the one thing that's really helpful is situation modification, which means moving things out of sight. When they're out of sight, they're out of mind. And so if you can have them out of sight, then there's less temptation, and it's actually really powerful. So try and figure out like a box or a room, and you guys are probably trying to figure that out. But that's a topic that we could do all night, screens. You know, screens is crazy right now. But I've got a couple ideas that I think are helpful in the book.
Great. Have you ever like physically thrown a device?
Definitely thought about it. I don't know if I have, but
Think about that time with the orange in the parking lot. One time we were walking through the parking lot late at night, and Thomas was holding this orange. It was a cold night. Me and Noah and Tyler were for an Imagine Learning event. We used to work together with Darren. And he just like all of a sudden, Tal just gets these little bursts of energy, and he just like threw this orange as hard as he could at a sign, and he missed the sign, but it just flew off. Anyway, it just came out. So maybe if you threw a device.
I actually like that, and I think that dads actually, there's one section about dads and losing our cool, and like I think that is a really important point that we think about and communicate with our kids about how to. There's this thing called the volcano dad, and you show it to the kids. You say, I'm actually going from a green to a yellow right now, and I do not want to have an eruption. So let's not talk about this right now, or let's calm this down, because then it avoids that.
Yeah,
that
what if your
up.
kids are like, bring it? Want to see an eruption?
They probably will say bring it. They know how to push our buttons, but it does actually help to do that. It's a really interesting thing. If you explain that to them and they're like, "Ooh, I don't want the volcano dad," and they'll kind of back away a little bit.
Okay, so another piece of the lightning round, like a lot of times, talking about sex with your kids is important. That's something that our parents have written about, that I feel strongly about, being open with those things. A lot of times it's like, I feel like in general culture is like, hey, that's the mom's job to talk about that. And dad kind of sits back. Like, do you talk about that at all in this book, and what are your advice on that?
Yes, that's one of the ways. And I think that it's just important to say it's a conversation. Start it whenever you think your child is ready. Our daughter was ready at 7. Some kids are ready at 5. But I think, and then it's an ongoing conversation. And you just have touch points every once in a while. Just a couple of weeks ago, I just caught up with my daughter just casually after a dinner. Hey, do you have any questions about this stuff? You've been seeing a lot of things online. Do you have anything that you're, and she did ask some questions, and we have this connection through that. So just keep it going and bring it up every few months. I think that's the key.
I like that too, because I think sometimes it's like, hey, dad talked to the boys, mom talked to the girls, but I like that you're saying,
yes,
let's have just an open conversation.
Yeah.
Going back to the eruptions, is it like a bad sign if you're at the dentist and they're like looking at the x-rays and they're like, hey, do you have a stressful job? No, but I have kids. Do you grit your teeth in your sleep? No. But I do clench my jaw a lot when I'm frustrated with my kids.
Oh, right.
So I have hairline fractures in my teeth because I'm clenching my jaw. So watch out.
Wow.
I don't know why I said that.
That's actually totally real. I mean, I love it because it's really difficult to be a dad, and we do have some stress.
And I just bite my tongue within my hunger. Okay, mealtime. That's important. What do you do at mealtime? What does Dad and Mode say?
Mealtime was sacred for us. I made sure it was clear to Anita and Anina, I wanted to do mealtime, even if it's short. It was breakfast, actually. It wasn't dinner. We didn't have enough time for dinner. But one time for 10 minutes, that's all I wanted. And we had a little thing where we would learn something or we would read a book. We loved good night stories for rebel girls. And we would read one cool story about a rebel girl in history. And that was it. And it was really important for us to do that. So
what do you suggest to somebody that maybe has the best intentions, but they're not really doing that? Like, where do I start?
I'd say that dads, the thing that I'm trying to do is do authoritative parenting. So authoritarian parenting is not what we want. That's because I said so, and you don't explain anything. But authoritative is you're demanding but also supportive. And I think that even like Max has got, how old is your daughter now? One. Okay, so it's a little bit right now. Maybe some sleep training. It would be good to start thinking about this authoritative stance because it's going to save you a ton of sleep. But you have to be demanding, but also loving and supportive at the same time. And that's been proven to be like the best way for coaches and parents to really have good results with their kids. So be authoritative with little Murph on getting her naps and stuff if you can. So
Murphy, go to sleep. Try it. It works. Okay. So I got another question for you. There's obviously mom mode too, right?
Oh yeah, mom
I
mode.
mean, assuming there might be just some single dad, single mom. So let's say there's both sides. But if it is a two-parent relationship, how do you co-parent?
Oh yes, co-parenting is way number 3, and I highly recommend that people do a weekly Sunday meeting or co-parenting meeting. I love the word co-parenting because to me it's like it's used in when people are divorced or when they're trying to parent their kids from different places. But I think it should be used as well in every family because we're both having this direct connection with our kids. So we do a short 5-10 minute meeting every week, usually on Sundays, and I recommend just to coordinate the week, just to get things put together because parents are doing this together, so a co-parenting meeting sounds kind of weird, but it's a good thing.
So to expound on that a little bit, like you're both coming with opinions and thoughts and ideas of how to do things. How do you find common ground? Like this is how we're going to do this with Nina versus,
Well, usually it's just sort of a check-in on what's happening for the rest of the week, and then we'll address sometimes the things that are making a disconnect in the family, and those that can be difficult. But we just, if it's a disconnection, then we talk about it, and that's usually, sometimes those meetings go a lot longer, but it's great to just connect once a week for a meeting.
What's your favorite Georgia McFly line?
Probably now, Biff. Don't con me, Biff. Oh, you're right. I was just finishing the second co right now.
Sal and I share a love for Back to the Future and a lot of movies, and so a lot of times we'll just throw those out there. Good, that was good on the spot. Okay. Okay. Couple last questions. We'll open up. Carol Dweck wrote Growth Mindset, right? And that was like one of the first to make it on the scene big time with positive psychology.
Yeah.
She talks about growth mindset, things like that. What are your thoughts on growth mindset? Where do you stand on that, and how does it incorporate into your thoughts with that model?
Yeah, I think that I talk a lot about it, and it's basically the same thing through praise. So if we praise the process that the kids went through, they're more likely to have a growth mindset. And that's a growth mindset is that they can do anything, they can learn anything, but they just have to put effort in. So it's a little bit like dad mode, just put a lot of effort in, try and have focused effort. And then praising them for the effort that they've made instead of saying big things like you're smart or things like that. So I think that's a really important one. Yeah.
Okay. What's the best movie you've seen in the last 30 days?
Ooh, I highly recommend. I think Noah just wrote about it. What's it called? One Life. One Life. It was an absolute delight to watch. And that is a connection for our family. Like, we love movies. So thanks for asking about that. We love going to movies. It's like just great connection point.
And a cherry coke, right?
Yes.
You know, in Switzerland, when you go to movies, like it gets halfway point. Doesn't matter if it's like cliffhanger that just shuts off and they have a 15-minute intermission. Doesn't matter where it's like not like an important scene ended just like boom, intermission.
Yeah.
That's interesting, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and another piece that I learned a lot from you about is the locus of control. Tell us about that and how does that apply?
Okay, so maybe we should do this last one, and then I wanna hear from the group here because I know it's getting late. But thank you so much, guys. So locus of control is super important for us because we talk about it as a family a lot now. But basically, locus means the locality and control. So what I'm trying to do is move the locus of control from me telling my daughter what to do to her having her own control over what she's doing in her life. And it starts when she's young, and she's sort of she's an actor, and then she's an agent, and then she becomes an author of her own life. And I talk a little bit about that in the book. I love this alliteration of actor, agent, author. And I think that what we want to do is help people prepare our kids for the world, and not prepare the world for our kids. Basically, we're not snow plowing in front of them. We're basically helping them so that they can be their own adult as they get older. So
great, thank you. Okay, we want to spend a few minutes just letting you guys ask some questions. Okay, I'm gonna hand this microphone to you so we can hear it.
Jonathan, all right.
I had a great blessing to get a copy of this digitally. I'm excited for my paper copy that's going to come soon.
Yes.
You share an incredible story at the beginning about your family going to Oprah.
Yes.
I loved it so much. Can you just talk about that?
Of course. So when I was 14, we got asked to be on the Oprah show. My parents had just written a book called Teaching Your Children Values. And the Oprah team saw it and they called. And we thought it was a joke when they called us. I mean, the Oprah show, and they were serious. They wanted to fly the whole family out to Chicago. So I still remember going out there. They put us in a limo and drove us to the Drake Hotel. And it was a nicer hotel than we'd ever been in. We were used to the motels.
It's like sneaking in the back door with somebody in the tub.
Yes, 9 kids in 1 or 2 rooms usually. Yep. So we were super excited about that.
So imagine, like, how old were you? 14?
I was
13?
14, yeah.
14-year-old Tal eating his first like $30 hamburger. It was a good experience.
It was nice. So we ended up, being on the show, and it went really well. They did the whole show on the book in different segments, and then after the show aired, it went to #1 on the New York Times bestseller list, which was an amazing story. But we were actually in Las Vegas when it aired. It aired a few weeks later, and they were doing kind of a thing with my basketball team was there, and so we were at a casino having some lunch, and all the kids wanted to do a little bit of slot machines, and so we were asking our parents, and please, we want to see how it works. And they said, fine, here's some quarters, everybody. You'll find out, that gambling really doesn't get you anywhere. Sure enough, one of the kids won $40, and I thought it was Noah, but I'm actually, maybe that's not true. Charity.
Like a 7-year-old sister, yeah.
And
she's like, yeah.
And so right then, some ladies walk up to us and they say, hey, aren't you the family that we just saw on the Oprah show? Teaching your children about values? And we're like, yeah. So thank you for asking. That was a classic story.
Okay, great question. Thank you. Anybody else have a question they want to ask? Yeah.
What was it about your studies and sort of the science that you were looking at that sort of changed a perception that you had about fatherhood or being a dad, that when you looked at the science, you said, oh, actually, we may have this wrong and we may need to reorient?
Yeah, thank you. It was such an amazing time there, being with this group. I think that the biggest thing that I learned about in positive psychology was the fact that gratitude is is so powerful. Gratitude and awe. It, and I hadn't ever really thought about awe. I thought about this is awesome, but awe in general is something that I try and look for every day of my life now. Because if you have more awe in your life, if you go out and look at the stars, or one of my favorite movies recently was a guy who cleans toilets in Tokyo for a living. I recommend it. It's called Perfect Days, and it's this amazing German director, and he walks out of his little dumpy house in Tokyo, and he just looks up at the sky and smiles. And he sits at his lunch break after cleaning toilets, just looking at the leaves in the park, and he's cultivating awe in his life. And I think that that's such a powerful thing. So thank you for asking about that. But those were the biggest takeaways for me. And just looking at awe when I see my daughter, or when we have a moment of connection. So I literally apply the things that I learned on a daily basis there. So thanks for asking.
Great, thank you. Who else? Anybody else have a question? Yeah, back in the.
I'm just curious, with all of your research and knowledge, what's the one thing that you see dads doing day to day, maybe well-meaning, but you see and you're like, oh man, I wish you were doing that a little differently, or
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for asking. I got to tell you that I think that my life would probably be pretty difficult if I did that very often, because it's so hard. With every family is different. So what I try and do instead is I try and say everybody's in their own noble struggle, and what can I learn from that person? They must be in a difficult spot. Being in New York City, you see people with their kids on the subway or whatever, and that it's just so hard, because you can't judge them, because everybody's just in a different struggle. And the more you kind of see that, the more you realize that, wow, there's just got to be ways that they can take this on. And that's one of the reasons I wrote the book. So thanks for the question. But that's what I try and do, is sort of switch that thought. So, yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
So you've touched on this a little bit, but you've had this opportunity to do a lot of research. But how much do you still, when something comes up in your parenting in your life, do you say or think, what would my parents have done? What did my dad do? What was that was similar in my past experience that I can apply to this, as opposed to completely new thinking, putting aside those, what would my parents do, kind of thing.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. My parents they're I just saw on their Facebook, they said, we are arguably some of the most well-known parenting experts in the world, but now we're old. I love that comment. But basically, they did such an amazing job, and I love them. And I think that the pathways that they created, some of them I just keep them. I totally default into them, and I think they're great. But then Anita also reminds me, no, this is our family. We need to create some new pathways. And so the science behind it was really helpful, but also Anita's influence and the way that she was parented, the way that she entered the world. So we kind of work together and create our own. But I think that the science is interesting, because I only took the most empirical data that I could. I wanted to get the longitudinal stuff, because some of the things are actually, they're having a duplication crisis with social science right now. Like, some of the science stuff that was out 10 years ago is totally debunked now. And so I only went with some of the main stuff that has really lasted the test of time. But it's a lot of it is in the book, yeah. So thank you, Chris.
All right. So with the business, we have KPIs.
Yeah.
With your dad mode dashboard, what are some of the leading indicators that you put on to say, all right, I'm on track, or I'm way off track, my kid's definitely going to become a stripper?
love that question. Yeah. I think that a good way to see that would be if your child or your children feel comfortable sharing with you what's really on their mind. I think that if they feel that unconditional love that they can come to, and I got to tell you, it's not always the case for me. My daughter, she doesn't come to me for some things, but if I can have that connection with her, where she says, "Dad, I want to talk to you about something," then I know that she knows that I love her no matter what. So that would be the barometer for me. That would be the KPI if she's bringing things up with me.
Okay, this is maybe not the most well-developed question, so we'll see how it comes out. But I think it just relates to the idea of shadow work.
Mm-hmm.
I feel a lot of passion around positive psychology. I've studied a lot. I've taught it. And yet there's this disconnect of everything that I know and my ability to then do it as consistently as I would like. And so I would just love any perspective you have on just navigating that continual lifelong process of that shadow work and seeking to improve.
Thanks. I seriously could talk about shadow work all night. I love it. So let me just say that it's the same thing with growth mindset. They've said that if you tell a kid about growth mindset, it won't help that much. But if you say, when you start doing something new that's difficult and you feel that difficult thing happening, don't give up. Push through that. And I think it's the same thing with shadow work. It's a zinger. It hurts. But you actually want to cultivate this ability to actually find joy in being wrong or being humiliated. And so for me, it's how do you actually, oh my gosh, that's a really terrible feeling. How do I actually twist that and actually look forward to that and try and figure out how to find joy in it? And one of the best guys that does that is Daniel Kahneman, who just passed away, but he wrote Thinking Fast and Slow. He's an amazing psychologist, Nobel Prize winner. And he was known for being the guy who says, I could be wrong. In fact, tell me more about what you're saying, because I actually want to know how I'm wrong. And I think that if we do that, the shadow work starts picking up. And it's such good work. It's such good work to do. So thank you for the question.
Beautiful. Thank you. Okay, we have time for 2 more questions. Anybody else have a question they want to ask? Or one? Okay, well, I think we've covered a lot. Thank you guys so much for being here. I just want to give Tal a special thanks for being here. Thanks to all of you guys for coming. My last question for you, Tal, is like, what would your hope be for everybody as they leave today? What would your hope be for them specifically when it comes to dad mode or parenting?
So I would just say thanks so much for being here. Have a great drive home, and thank you so much to Julie and Eli for opening up your home tonight. I know it's a weeknight, and I know you need to get home, but thanks to my wonderful family. And I would just say, if you want to, actually, I'm going to be a little more authoritative. Please post about this. Share it with people around you if you like what you learned or if you like the book, because I do want to get it to people. I'm not trying to make money on this. This is a labor of love, but I do think it's a good book, and I think it can help people. So
what's the best way to do that?
So if you're following me, you can repost my stuff. I'm actually terrible at social media stuff, so you might know more than me, but just repost my things if you can, or just share that you came here.
Your Tal Iyer, at Tal Iyer?
Yeah, Tal Iyer, yeah, on yeah, and yeah,
Yes,
I think so.
Yes. Interwebs, yes.
Check it out on the interwebs, okay?
Okay, so taliyer.com too is also, you can go on. There's more about the book. There's a link to Amazon to order the book.
Yeah, It's all pre-order, but it should be shipped in early June. So it's just in time for Father's Day. So it would be amazing to have you guys' help. Just talk
So
about it.
buy it for your friends, buy it for your other dads for Father's Day. Follow Tal, and I have a personal connection with him. So like, if you guys, after you read the book, you have questions, I know how to get a hold of him. So, and you know where I live, so you can come knock on the door. The only thing I'm kind of surprised we didn't get any Meet the Parents quotes tonight, though.
That's true. That's true.
Do you
I'll
want to
leave
make a
you
comment
guys with
about
one.
the,
Yeah.
about the
So
floor?
for the floors, we chose Oblivion Wormwood. I think it works well. We've got the Viking Range and the Twin Sub Z's. I love Meet the Parents. So yeah. Thanks, Eli.
Okay, so what's the website? Does everybody remember? Boom.com right there. Yeah.
Shawnee.
Speaking of Meet the Parents, there is another event too. If anyone wants to
Yeah,
Oh
there's
yeah,
another
yeah.
event.
Good point. So if you have friends and you're like, oh, they should come, they need to hear this, on the 18th up at my parents' house in Park City, we're going to do another one of these. A nice big plate, even bigger plate, like that came out wrong. Just a little, like the ceilings are maybe like 20 feet higher. So, but really, like, it's going to be on the 18th. There's information on that on the website as well. If you want to share that, people can RSVP and be there. And if you happen to be in Frankfurt on June 30th, you can hit that one too. So, groupies. Okay, last thing I want to do, you can tell, lean in here like this. We're going to get everybody, see if you can see the camera. All right. This is the room where it happened. 1, 2, 3. All right, cool. Thank you so much for being here. Do you have any parting words?
Thank you, guys. Go dad mode. Thanks for being here, guys. Hey, awesome questions. Thanks so much for